He's got the rise again tonight. Let's see if he can do it all again here, Shock.
I think he might be able to. I mean, this guy's rise is pretty legendary, at least from what we've seen before. But yeah, I mean, the Nidalee Jace Renekton, I mean, that top side, very strong. The nice thing for Nidalee here is that there is gank set up on both bot and top. So there's lots of windows or areas to kind of play through. But at the same time, Feng is the cleanse. And killing Lee Kai, I feel like it doesn't really snowball the game a whole lot. Although I do love this level 1 from DWT. Ooh, interesting though. So it actually does reveal the position. But perhaps going to play for the split map, which is curious, right? Because if you're playing away from your Renekton, I mean, I don't know. On one hand, that's bad for Kongyue because he has to play towards the Scion. At the same time, though, weak side Renekton feels kind of random. I mean, actually, I guess I like it from DWT. You can still play towards this bot lane as long as they can get significant amount of pressure. Definitely a curious choice, though.
Yeah, it is a curious choice. And I mean, I'm just looking at the trade-off in terms of what's happened, right? The fact that the Kai is leashed there for Kongyue, guaranteeing his blue buff will not be invaded upon, but a lot of harass went back onto DWT, stealing away that red buff in the process. Has been, traded in part, as you've just seen now. So I'm curious to see really this jungle interaction, if it is going to be the typical, I go to top lane, I partner with Renekton, we become best buds, we win before level 6. Or if they do say, no, look how much CC between a Root and an Annie stun we have in the bot lane, especially now that Annie gets stunned right off the bat, we can find right here. Meanwhile, mid lane, hang on a minute here, what's happened? Just been trading down to 20% casually.
Yeah, I think they just traded 1 million auto attacks with each other. So lots of damage, which is kind of scary for both sides, right? Because both sides have, strong early junglers. And Zhao,
I'm just hearing flashes going off.
No.
Double flash in the mid lane, and Zhao in a lot of trouble.
Not
Cocoon
again.
on his head. It's a first blood, and it's BYG's to take in the first 3 minutes.
I think it's kind of bad from Zhao, I think, to go for so many trades because, WSL, he's going to look to play for those 2 lanes that have CC. Speaking of, is throwing spears at bot, but I feel like heavy trading mid, it can only benefit Kongyue, who just has, the point-and-click ganks it up in mid lane with that rise. And then how, he's dealing a bit of damage to Kino on the bot side here. Now let's get a replay. So yeah, I mean, at the start, Zhao, he's pushed up very low, no jungler in that area. And I honestly think this is just a big mistake from Zhao to heavy trade so much when his lane is probably not going to be the one receiving pressure from his team. Does go over, and it's kind of a freebie picked up for Kongyue so early into the game.
It certainly is. It's all you need, right? You want to make sure that 116 is online as quickly as possible. The fact that the Elise gets that first interaction and the first kill too. I mean, flash for kill, you just love to see it as well.
Oh, almost. He didn't quite get it. That would have been a yoink and a half, though. Oh, WSL is actually going to get 3 jungle quadrants, though, I believe. Which is, very nice for the Nidalee. I think at the moment, just kind of the way the jungle works, like there's a lot of catch-up XP, so it's not the worst for Kongyue, especially because he picked up a kill. But Nidalee really getting the start, I feel like that she wants. Kongyue as well, kind of matching that. WSL is going to enter the river. I think despite Zhao losing the flash and dying, okay, so actually WSL is getting a bit of poke, has Enhao in the area.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see really what the next move is here from Dewish team, right? You can see that Zhao is trading so aggressively once again. Doesn't seem to be deterred at all by the fact that he fell victim to that first blood. His mana is incredibly low. Obviously, he can just jump back into hammer form and look to try and regen that up as quickly as possible. But aggressively pushing. Really want to give WSL as much priority to roam, invade, try and find threats of his own. But it feels weird that as you say from the very get-go, kind of just put this Renekton on an island.
Yeah, I mean, Renekton can, I feel like, function as a weak side because he's, not particularly diveable. But at the same time, if you've picked Nidalee Renekton, right, it feels like you kind of want to get something done with it. And at the same time, if you're not playing towards that, then you're expecting some sort of lead in bot lane, right? You've got this Jhin Annie strong-sided, but nothing's really come of it. So, yeah, I feel like Dewish team perhaps not getting the start they want so far. Kongyue is spotted out on that ward, just on the very edge of it. WSL's in the area for the counter gank.
Ooh. Well, they decide to commit for this one. Cocoon goes out once again. Instant repel, spear is dodged. Down they go. Runeflux commits as Kino just going to circumvent a little bit of damage. Cops the stun, but a shield is good. And that mitigates a whole bunch and more. We just have a cheeky 3v3 in the mid lane as we play Skill Shot Simulator, just dancing all over the show.
Yeah, only 5 minutes 40 in, and mid lane is definitely a 1v1 lane. 6 people pulled up already. I mean, that's kind of depressing. I don't like that. But here we have WSL, once again, using his priority, going into this jungle. This red buff will be spawning sort of soon, so just going to ward it, and then perhaps look to reset.
And at this point, I'm curious, really, what the strategy is a case of, Kong Yue has to try and out-gank the Nidalee, or is, WSL saying, I'm just going to farm so on the clock that you just cannot keep up. I'm just going to item advantage you that, you need to find so many kills that you have to take more risks than I do.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think WSL can just kind of keep playing for tempo, playing for objectives, and try and scale up. At the same time, Kong Yue, I don't feel like he really scales badly on the Elise. Like, it's a champ that sort of falls off, but at the same time, like, he's pretty much the solo AP. Well, not the solo AP. Him and Ryze, definitely, the 2 APs of this team. But it's kind of difficult to really itemize full MR against them, especially when there's, the likes of the Zeri still in the game. Obviously very threatening. But this looks like the Dragon will be picked up. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a nice pickup. I think definitely if you're playing an early game composition like this, you need those Dragons. Curtain Call goes down on bot lane.
Oh, you really hate to miss the last one.
Yeah, he was trying to bend it around, I
think. Of all the shots, man, he tried to bend it like Beckham, and it just really has not worked in his favor.
Hey, this could be actually another red buff going over WSL. I don't even think Kong Yue has had a red buff this game. Didn't even get the one on the top side. So they're doing a good job of controlling this jungle, but the CS remains even.
Yeah, and that's the big takeaway, right? Is the fact that he's managed to find camps elsewhere on the map to try and stabilize. So it's not as if he's been completely denied, even if he has lost those major buffs, which give you that skirmishing potential. So what does WSL do with the second spawning of the red buff, close to level 6? Kong Yue first to hit it.
Yeah, so will there be any pressure put towards this bot lane? I feel like it's kind of difficult to pressure other lanes without going through mid when you're playing against a Ryze, right? Because you can always just realm warp to whichever lane. At the same time, though, killing a Ryze that has Catalyst is very difficult, right? So I feel like Dewish team, despite I feel like needing to snowball early, they almost don't have great, avenues to snowball through. I guess just keep stacking up drags, maybe play for these neutral objectives.
Yeah, well, tempo is the name of the game. If you aren't really afforded the opportunity to, be entertained, those fights that you're after, then it may just be a case of, Herald and Dragon on repeat, and that might be what we're seeing right now because WSL is once again in the area, in the river. His second home, it feels like right now, scouting out possibilities. He's going to jump across that wall and try and circumvent the vision of a potential gank topside, but I think he has been spotted out now as Kai is coming.
There's a lot of members nearby. This is almost a 5v5 on Herald, I feel like. Yeah, lots of members from BYG. I mean, everyone is here.
The whole squad is here.
Yeah, no, I'm not even sure who this goes better for. I guess if anyhow can find some sort of pick early, but Feng has a cleanse. It's going to be difficult. I feel like in the straight 5v5, BYG is actually probably stronger.
No level 6 for these supports, so bear that in mind. Dominus has been popped off the screen right now. Lakunai looking for that flank angle right there as we find the route onto Lakai, who's forced to flash away. In goes the Renekton. Lightning crash on his head! And that Renekton just got popped. Never stood a chance. The stun is available here for Enhao, but it's not the stun you're after. It's a stun into a route, into a steal away. Beautiful there from WSL, but the eye will not be claimed unless DWT can make an assault to push back in again. But they're down members. It is a 4v5, and it looks like you've stolen it, but you can't actually claim it. Ooh. Oh, but now they just flash into action and say, why are you still here? Why are you posturing? And this could actually get ugly now, Shock. This could go from real bad to worse. A flash across the wall, Kong Yue. He's just going to remind them, don't ever do that again.
Yeah, BYG, I mean, I feel like they have the better straight-up 5v5, but the WT, they have the poke, but unfortunately, not enough poke lands. And I think Lakunai, he went in just a bit too early and got popped super early on in the fight. Let's take a look at this. So, it looks like Lakunai actually has a pretty good angle here, right? Lakai kind of goes in early, takes a lot of damage for free, and I think at this point it's actually good for Dewish team. Lakunai, he makes it fast when it doesn't need to be, just instantly dies. There's just so much poke from this team, you don't need to play it that fast. And yeah, off the back end of this, I mean, Dewish team, they do get the Herald, but then try to stay around just a bit too long. And eventually Kong Yue is just able to flash forward and pick off WSL, kind of shut that Nidalee down. Stop it from going back to those camps and putting them on cooldown. Actually played with Fog really nicely. Lots of flashes forward committed. I think they even got Pepper's flash at the end as well.
Yeah.
I have to say, this is really disastrous for Dewish team. I mean, you need to get ahead with this comp. Now, not managing to secure the Herald, already being down 3 kills, the only thing you really have to your name is this first dragon. It's probably not going to be enough. Doesn't have flash or ult. Well, it has ult, actually.
Yeah, he's in a bit of trouble right now, and that's just going to be, the presence alone was enough to force out the dominance, right? I think the biggest takeaway for me from that last fight is the fact that even if it was a 4v5, there's a bit of desperation seeing very low members of BYG that they felt baited, that they had to stick around to try and force a fight. You win by getting a few cheeky kills, there's the goal, suddenly there's the eye, there you go. But ultimately it is falling beneath them right here. Kongyue goes up into the air, cannot find it until the very last moment. He disengages away, 116, doesn't get an assist, but he acts like a bodyguard. And WSL can just watch as his teammate dies.
Yeah, and Lee Kai tanks that tower for so long. And I think this is really problematic, right? Renekton, when behind, is pretty useless, especially building the Bork. I mean, what are you going to do? You're just going to get one shot. They're going on 116, but they have no damage. I mean, things are really falling apart for Dewish team. They can't really find angles back into this game. I mean, like we said, it's a high execution comp, and they've really failed to execute so far.
Here we go, though. There's the Tibbers, straight into the stun afterwards. Root locked in place, Kino in trouble, and as the curtain call comes out, 1, 2, a flash from Feng, and ult on his head as well. He's missed the final 2.
Oh no, he missed ult on the rooted target.
Oh, you really do hate to see that now, and I mean, just moments keep presenting themselves, but Dewish team just unable to find it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the second time that Dewish team, they've gone for this AP jungler with the AD solo laners, and the map just falls apart before it really matters. Obviously, Nidalee plays quite differently to Karthus, but it feels like the same story in both of those games where they just don't really have a strong enough early game to facilitate, playing for the jungler. And yeah, obviously the gold lead only slight here for BYG, but it means a lot, right? Ryze, Zeri, Sion definitely do not scale bad.
I think the mid lane tells the biggest picture of them all, right? The fact that 116 has already got the Rod of Ages online. He's already well advanced through that tier, being stacked up too, and was entertaining the idea of being ganked. Says, why are you coming at me? Because I can turn it around. I mean, it's only 13 minutes into this game, but don't you remember what happened all those weeks ago?
Now, Dragon is up. BYG, I think they should get this one, and it's rough for Dewish team. You're not going to have that Dragon win condition to kind of make up for your poor scaling. And at this point, I am wondering, where are they going to look to get back in? Because you'd expect to be able to trade something for the Dragon, but can you really trade onto Lakai's Sion, who's this tanky? I don't think there's any trade potential at all. Maybe you can take away a blue buff or a Grom.
Yeah, I think that's really what you're relegated to at this point. It's not enough of a wave to really feel that you're denying much, right? Kongyue is going to be very quick to come up here to try and prevent anything being stolen, and that blue buff, which is there, the Grom has to be reset as well. And unable to really try and stabilize in that kind of fashion. To the testament, though, they've managed to find 700 gold from those turret plates, and Zhao 2 with a blue buff as well is going to become a bit of a poking machine himself now.
Yeah, Zhao 2 is a nice CS lead, for sure, despite dying for the first blood. But is it going to be enough? I mean, the poke, it's going to be hard to stick, right? Can you really poke a Sion or a Ryze? I don't really think so. Perhaps can poke down the Zeri, but we'll have the shield bow. It's going to be difficult. 4 minutes here. I mean, credit to Dewish team. Obviously, they have picked a very early game team comp, but they haven't fallen as behind in early game as they do in some of their other games. So, perhaps one nice thing about this kind of comp. Actually, heavy trading mid.
Well, here we go. This is a beautiful collapse from them so far. And Zhao 2's the one in trouble. Tries to start things off, but then realizes he is getting collapsed upon. So straight 2v2. The mid jungles are both showcasing just how strong they are. Is BYG bullying them right back towards their side of the map.
Yeah, and kind of curious how much pressure's been put mid, to be honest, from WSL, because that's your only lane without kind of guaranteed gank setup. Maybe it just feels like that's the only window you kind of have now with that Sion being so tanky and Feng having the cleanse. But if that's the case, then it kind of feels like you need a different mid laner, right? Something that can kind of facilitate this a bit more than the Jace.
Exactly to your point, right, about it being high execution. So many skill shots that need to land. How many that we've seen have missed when you've got guaranteed CC through stuns and a root in either top or bot lane. It does feel a little bit bizarre, to say the least, to see it be a big focus on mid instead. Second Herald this time will be secured. There's no contest on that one. Kong Yue will smite it, and he will take it. And sitting very pretty in this situation as well, with the only bounty in the game, with a scoreline of 2-0-2.
Yeah, 200. I'm actually surprised there aren't more bounties. I guess like the gold lead remains kind of small, and that can be like a trouble, right? Because it feels like Dewish team, they're more behind than the gold lead suggests, just because of how the kind of team comps scale up, and they don't even have the objective bounties or the champion bounties to really bring themselves back into it. I feel like the next fight that happens will be really telling. Whether or not it happens on this next drag, I'm not too sure. But I think if Dewish team don't win the next fight, BYG are just going to run away with the game.
Yeah, I think at that point, right, you're starting to hit second item spikes. Obviously, the shield bow's just been completed. 330 now, the 360 needed for that tier to start to really be ramped up once the Archangels has been purchased. And at that point, it feels like you have, really missed the mark. So it's a dicey point of the game. Not to say the least, though, is that Lakunai does have himself that Blade of the Ruin King now, so does have a lot of damage, as does this Annie combo, where they find themselves a target. It is Kong Yue. They wanted the bounty, can't find it. He can repel, he can wild growth, he can buy infinite time. And it just means that you committed a TP. For what reason?
Yeah, I mean, that was, I feel like a decent enough start from Dewish team. They get the peck and they get a lot of ults out. Unfortunately, Kong Yue doesn't end up going down. I feel like they also invested ults their own right. The Annie ult was used, the Jhin ult committed. And does it mean that they win this fight? I kind of don't feel like it does. I mean, just look at Pepper's items, still on the mana immune compared to the shield bow. I mean, just very, very weak at this point. Dragon is in 1 more minute. Ooh, actually, perhaps looking top lane is Kong Yue. Tower is still up, but I don't feel like it's much of a deterrent, honestly, with just how tanky the Sun is.
Yeah, just completely routed this one out. Ignored as the drive-by comes on through. Charge stun, knock up, laser across the wall because we all want a piece of the pie. That's 4 members sharing the bounty. That's gold in their back pocket. And that's a very sad Crocodile now facing their 3rd death. The Herald is still there. The turret will fall down for free, the first of this game. And surely now you plant it in mid and guarantee that that 3rd Drake goes your way.
And League, I definitely have his driver's license. And like you said, I think that pick should mean that once you Herald mid, the 3rd Dragon does go your way. And I'm actually kind of surprised that that's actually the first tower going down, right? It feels weird, only 18 minutes in. But at the same time, BYG, they have just building up that kind of incremental lead. And I think, we had questions about how hard would Beyond Gaming kind of, take down Dewish team. Obviously, they're fairly advantaged. But at the same time, I felt like they've really done a good job of just neutralizing this early game comp, right? Despite the split map, despite having a lot of pressure in the lanes, nothing's really come of it. And BYG, firmly in control of this game. The Herald goes down. So we'll be going mid. Actually, will they just commit all 5 members on the mid wave? Perhaps don't need to. But could, right? Like, the dive potential is here with Lee Kai able to just tank it up forever.
Lakunai is on the flank as well, but that would seem disastrous given he has no flash TP or an ult right now, so has to definitely go to a much more defensive position. There's the Tibbers, not going to do too much to try and prevent Pippo falling on downfalls to burn the flash as well as the heal.
Yeah, good poke comes out of Zhao too, but Feng can just lifesteal it back up. And the Herald actually got the 2nd charge on mid as well as Pepper lost both his sums.
Yeah.
I think Dewish team will probably give up this dragon if they try and fight.
You just disengage your way to the dragon now, right? I mean, you've just got such a huge summoner advantage more than anything.
Yeah, I'd be amazed if Dewish team try and fight this with no sums on their ADC. And especially, I mean, maybe they just feel, ooh, 116 misses the flash route, not quite in range. And Lee Kai has such a wall you have to get through here, just does not take any damage from anyone.
Look at him go! He's holding them all back. 1v4, turns around, hits 1-man stun, lightning crash on the head, 3-man knock up afterwards. Here's the realm warp, because where are you running to? They run on his head. It's already dead. And that is just a little bit too easy for them. 2 easy picks. They wanted the dragon. You've entertained the idea of contesting, and they for sure are going to punish you for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult from Dewish team, right? On one hand, it feels like a dragon that you just can't contest because you're too far behind. But are you ever going to get any stronger in this game? I feel like you kind of get outscaled across the board. Like, I don't really think so. It definitely kind of reeks of desperation, but what other choice do you have? You're not going to scale up into this game. And despite the gold lead being, I want to say, fairly minor, you're just already outscaled in pretty much every lane. I mean, look at the Renekton especially, 0-4-0 with the Borg. It really doesn't matter what the gold is at this point. You're just kind of useless. But let's take a look at the replay. I mean, everyone's so far behind. Just like, look at Leakai. He doesn't... Ooh, that was the initial flash EW. But yeah, have a look at the Scion. Just takes literally no damage, taking up 4 people. Has the Lulu shields as well. And can then just ult for the re-engage, just noticing that no one does any damage to him. Also, I think he got a 3-man Q. Yeah, really, really nice engage. And then off the back end, everyone just kind of gets taken down. Nothing else really to it.
You can see, on the side there, WSL sniffing at a potential flip for another Smite steal, right? And I think, the Dragon was going down, but BOIG were quite keen on the idea that, well, if you keep coming at us from that other angle, then, we're going to pull the trigger before that, that potential burger flip can even be a possibility. So I think, yeah, certainly patience has not been in their best interest for Dewish team this game when it's come to, contesting, but... yeah, BYG, despite what has been a game where the gold lead hasn't really been the biggest of all, it has been a very telling game from just the scoreboard in isolation.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, if Dewish team, they couldn't win that fight, is there really any hope for them winning the next one? I'm not too sure. Perhaps at this point, if you can get Enhal, a big flash ulti, that might be your one way back into it. But they have to deal so much damage in such a short amount of time. And I'm not sure if anyone's really up to the task, right? Like, maybe Zhao is at 2 items and can deal quite a bit. Credit to him, he's actually CS'd very well. We do actually have a pause coming through. Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think, yeah, you raise a really valid point, right? Obviously, we've seen Jace's fall behind. We've seen them have disastrous score lines, but they still do put out a lot of damage. It's one of those champions where it feels obviously good to be ahead, but the damage output isn't significantly hampered. So it's certainly going to be a position where he can influence it, but I guess it completely circles back to draft again, where it is all about you've got to land poke. Which target is it going to go on? The amount of shielding that you have already, you've seen that you can't even 1v4 the Science, that's off the cards, right? The Elise, far too elusive. The Zeri now has got a shield bow with a pocket Lulu, so it's just like, you need so much coordination and such a long amount of stun duration that it's, you're fighting upstream, really.
Yeah, 100%. I think as well, kind of on that point of playing the poke comp when you fall behind, it makes it much easier for the enemy team to engage, right? And that's really poke's biggest weakness, is just being engaged on before the poke lands. And I think here, the fact that Leakai's Scion can just ult into the enemy team and there's really nothing to stop him. I mean, it definitely just doesn't bode very well for DWT, but I have been informed it's a player microphone issue. I think we had this before, perhaps with Kongue.
I think it's somebody from DWT, from what I heard. So I think they'll be saying, look, guys, new plan. We're going to try and play an engaged style of poke comp. And I'm not sure what that would look like.
I'd like to know too.
The Nilly doesn't chuck spears anymore, just in permanent Cougar form.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you just get like the Flash Annual and then just like the Jace QE, the Nidalee follow-up. I mean, I feel like if you can get CC onto one target, as long as it's not Scion, the damage is probably there. I do wonder, though, if you invest that much into killing one person, like, do you even win the fight after? I'm not even sure you do. And without the bounties being that big, I honestly don't even know if it's worth it, right? You get that kill, you still lose the objective, or you get that kill, but you end up losing the tower anyway. Now, it feels like Dewish team, both with their draft and play, have just kind of dug themselves into a hole that I'm not sure any amount of dirt blocks will get them out of. Yeah,
I think really at this stage, their best bet has been when they've been trying to contest these objectives, because it has been a concentrated area, so the margin for error of landing those skill shots is obviously a lot easier to execute upon. But if BYG were just to open up the map and say, look, we've got a Rise, we can just break apart, have a Zeri split pushing here, have a Scion just holding down a lane where you can't even send 3 people down and kill him anyway. He can just drift away, right? He can demolish proc these towers. I think BYG really have so many options that it's almost at this point their game to lose if they were to entertain the idea of these constant sketchy ideas of a Herald Smite Seal, a Dragon Flip, and obviously when a Baron comes on the cards, it's like, well, you know that Dewish team, that is their ticket back in. So why would you want to give them that chance in the first place?
Yeah, 100%. BYG as well, you know, just so in control, right? Like you said, just not really giving any chances over, just maintaining pretty much constant, like not even just like vision, just full control, right? They ganked mid lane super early. Top lane is already pretty ungankable because it's Sion. Feng has the cleanse. I actually think, you know, perhaps getting that kill mid really destabilizes the game for Dewish team, because that's like, despite it being the lane you don't have the point and click gank set up in, it's also, Ryze is very vulnerable early, right? Like doesn't have any mobility to speak of, doesn't have the cleanse, doesn't have the tankiness of the Sion, and just from what, like 3 minutes in, it was already going the way of BYG. So yeah, I mean, have never really allowed Dewish team a window back into this. And also credit, I feel like, to Kongyue as Elise, who has managed to keep up in CS, right? Despite being like, I know he lost both red buffs, so he must have got 3 quadranted, but I guess just picked up enough CS from the Scuttle Crabs or whatever.
Yeah.
And managed to stay even.
Got a few donations from his laners,
Yeah,
perhaps.
perhaps so.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a curious case, right? Because I think BYG, one of those teams right now that I'm unsure really where to place them in the league as a whole.
I think I know.
Where's your standing?
Well,
because I feel like outskirts of top 6 is like potential, but I feel like on their day, definitely like top 4.
You reckon definitely top 4?
I feel like if they're firing on all cylinders, they're looking like a top 4 team. But I feel like for the most part, I feel like you're hovering around 6th, 7th.
Yeah, okay, maybe I can kind of agree with that. I think you're right. Well, I don't know, it's hard to say because I feel like BYG, they had that massive first game performance up against CFO, but if you kind of take that out, I feel like they don't really look super strong. Like, I'm definitely kind of with you, like the 5,
It's
6,
the inconsistency,
7.
right?
Yeah. But honestly, if it weren't for that like massive first game, I would be, you know, my BYG stocks would be pretty low.
Oh, really down
So it
low.
depends how much you value that first game.
But I guess that's why one of these games kind of becomes imperative, because if you are looking up against a struggling team like Dewish team, it's the manner in which you close this one out, right? You said at the start there that you were impressed by how they've managed to hold off the early game intricacies of what it was, right? The fact that you have gone for an anti-gen, that you have got these lanes that in Italy should be able to try and exploit. But now it's a case of you've got a lead, everybody knows you have a lead, you know that you have some laners like the Renekton that is just completely out of this game. So with that in mind, you know, how do you balloon this into a 10k gold lead? How do you look to make sure that there is no way back in, that the door is firmly shut closed?
Yeah, let's see if they can do it, because the first time these teams faced, it was BYG winning in 27 minutes, which I think is one of our fastest games of the split. If not the fastest, it might have been, I feel like, a CFO game quicker than that. But I think it is going to be difficult, right? Like DWT, I mean, say what you want, they are very far behind, but the gold lead isn't big enough that BYG can just force and kind of not think about anything. But yeah, have those 2 drags. Potentially have Baron as a win condition if they do manage to pick up any more teamfight wins here.
Like, I feel like right now DWT would be at their strongest, right? You're about to have all your flashes up on every player once again. This is when you've got the ability to try and go for those wombo combo style points of attack. And I've seen teams win from that position down 10k gold before, right? It just needs to be synchronized, which has been at the best of times a little bit hampered. But if BYG looked to try and play the split push like this, this could certainly be an area that you can exploit upon. 116, whilst he's strong with 2 items complete, he's certainly squishy when pounced upon like that.
Yeah, so this is what we're talking about. You can invest a lot to get kills at the start, but will it be enough? Because WSL, he's forced to flash out. I feel like Zhao can maybe TP out. Will he go for it? Yes. Okay, so he actually TP's bot, but that could mean that BYG start up the Baron. I feel like committing that TP bot, I think they're very lucky that that TP wasn't on vision. I guess it was a pink. But yeah, I mean, having your jungler, Zhao, I mean, he actually TP's bot and takes away the red. I mean,
That's a value TP.
Yeah, he's in CS Kingdom right now. Yeah, I mean, okay, so they pick up the kill, but this is what you mean, right? It's like 300 gold given over, or perhaps a bit more from the assist, but it doesn't really translate into anything. I mean, got the red buff, I guess. It's not nothing, but it's not a dragon win, it's not a teamfight win, and it's certainly not a Baron.
But this could be now a really exciting prospect, because you've got that next dragon up in a minute. You know that BYG will be pretty keen for it to put themselves at a soul point. The Baron has been taunting you for the last 5 minutes now. You've got a double buffed Jace that's, as we said before that pause, on now 2.5 items from that most recent purchase. So there is a world in which you can potentially line up the stars, but that's why I go back to the fact that, BYG in the driver's seat, how do you hit the finish line?
Yeah, I mean, Zhao Tu, he's actually pulled himself to top gold in the game. So he's the one in the driver's seat of his team for sure. And he's got a bounty, which feels kind of unfair, honestly. 200 gold bounty. So will they contest this dragon? I mean, they're playing through mid, Dewish team. I think they do want to fight.
There it is. But look at the cleanse. Instantly out of that one. Right now, there's the stun in response. And BYG just said we do it better. Unbelievable turn of events there. And I just feel like DWT have just pulled the trigger a little bit too early with 2 major objectives. Instead, they're trying to force it in mid.
Yeah. Feng, he just cleanses out the initial anti-engage. And we see this Zeri Shieldbow BT build coming in through again. So just extremely resistant to any sort of poke or engage, right? Combined with overheal, you end up with, what, an extra like 400, 500 HP even? And then, yeah, just the tons of lifesteal on top of it, able to sustain anything up. And BYG, I mean, they know that Dewish team don't have the Baron DPS, so can't threaten anything on the other side of the map. So can just continue to kind of threaten numbers on this side.
And that new Zeri build, or I say new Zeri build, but this full lifesteal Zeri build feels very reminiscent of that original, I want to say like on-release Bruiser Zeri build, right? Where she was just incredibly tanky, just had so much HP, but was putting out so much damage in the process, right? So you combine this with a Lulu and it's just like, yeah, I just have a 1k shield on demand.
It feels very difficult. Now Feng doesn't have cleanse though, and now does have flash. Ooh, I feel like if they can't find a kill on this window, it's going to be very hard to kill Feng ever again.
Oh.
TP flank.
TP flank indeed. In they go with the Realm Warp as well. Double flash away. Headbutts the wall. It is a headache. But can they find a target on the scurry away? No, they can't. Dewish team running all 3 corners. But they've lost all their flashes, and that's the big takeaway.
Yeah, BYG, they have so much control over this Baron area. Can they just look to start it? I mean, they have... maybe they just don't feel the need to. I mean, they have so much control right now, and they know flashes are down. Can be difficult, I think, to start this up. Zhao Tu, I mean, he lands some very nice poke.
Uh-oh, he's turned around, though. He's just running and tried to do it on his own. Is he forced to burn a flash? He is. That's another flash loss. Now, Lucky Knight jumps in 1v4 and says it's my turn to strike. But here he's got Prowler Strike. Doesn't do anything. Across the wall, stun flash. But look at the lifesteal. And look at the shields. The Zeri is still alive. This build is broken. Look at the HP go back. Jumping across the wall. He's overshot it. But we don't mind, because the zap is there, the shutdown is confirmed, and it is actually a nice one from Zhao Tu to sneak it away in retaliation too.
Yeah, Zhao Tu really doing what he can on the back end, but that was disgusting. I mean, Feng, he dashes into 3 people with no cleanse, gets stunned, and still manages to live and deal almost 5,000 damage. I mean, if that does not seem very balanced to me.
No. No, not at all. That seems like an AD carry's absolute dream. Feels like we're playing a little bit of Earth right now because we're just having a little bit too much fun as we run it back with a replay.
Yes, I think Zhao Tu, he finds a really good angle. He gets some initial damage onto Kino. I mean, it actually looks pretty decent at the start, but I think, forced to flash over this wall kind of takes Zhao Tu out of the fight for a long time. Then Feng, I mean, this was crazy, right? Like, he kills Lucky Knight. Okay, sure, that makes sense. Dashes into 3 with no cleanse, stunned up, 3 people on him, just manages to live and can actually flash forward off that, right? It's insane, I feel like, if your ADC is that far ahead that they can just do that. I mean, Zhao Tu, to his credit, he's 2-1-0, he has a lot of CS, he's very strong.
He is.
But I just think the rest of the map has kind of collapsed around him.
I'd be very curious to see this post-game breakdown. I'd imagine that the Jace...
Yeah, it must be some ridiculous damage.
Would certainly be up there, right? Very isolated compared to the rest of his team's output. But he's trying. He really is. And that's what they have to do because, yeah, BYG are certainly giving chances for Dewish team to answer back, right? It is still a 6k lead, and it is still objectives that are taunting them from afar. Soul Point was confirmed a while back, and obviously now it's Soul Point up for grabs in a minute itself. And I feel like Mountain Soul's probably the worst one of them all, right? The fact that you're thinking you've got a poke comp, if you've got the resistances, you're kind of a little bit upset.
Yeah, it does feel pretty bad. I always say it with Mountain Soul as well. It's not something that really requires any execution, right? It's just stats on top, which is really, really nice. BYG, they haven't picked up the Baron, but still looking to siege into the poke comp as well. I mean, he can kind of just walk them off the tower. So another tier 2 picked up here. I mean, this is, yeah, it's pretty nice. They've managed to break inhib and all tier 2s.
They just rumble in.
Yeah, I think this just dies instantly.
Look at the DPS they'll have. Completely out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, and this is picked up really before Dewish team can even do anything about it. That's kind of what the Rise Up can afford you. And now Mountain Soul coming up in 22 seconds. I think Dewish team, you probably have to contest it. But I mean, you're just so far behind in terms of the team fight right now. Killing Feng, especially now that he has the cleanse, is going to be such a tall task for you.
Yeah.
Maybe Xiaochu can do it though. I mean, he's up 3 levels over the Zeri and is extremely farmed. I mean, 330 CS at 31, especially on the losing team. Oh no, the poke hits and it's instantly lifestealed up.
Yeah.
I take it away. Xiaochu cannot do it.
I was saying, maybe there's a world with an Annie and a Renekton flash that potentially something may just be able to happen. Lakai, the one in trouble, but really, was he at all? I don't think so. Lucky and I is going to burn that flash that I praised only moments prior, thinking that could have been a way back in. And yeah, I mean, this is the perfect scenario, right, for BYG. You've got a Baron-inspired recall, back to base, straight to Dragon, pick up the Soul. And yeah, just look to see where do you go next.
Yeah, I think BYG, they should be able to end off this one if they play aggressively enough. While there is, you know, some kind of range, there's really no wave clear. I mean, you'll see the Jhin and Jace really struggle to deal with these Baron creeps. With an inhib already broken, as well as the top lane at the tier 3, they're actually TPing, so they're 5-manning one lane, perhaps just want to find the engage and find the end. I feel like there's really no one that can clear these waves at all.
Nah, look at that. Demolish proc, dead. Stun, instant flash away. So the engage potential of Annie is being missed once again. Second inhibitor falls on down. Mid will come back up in about a minute now, but they're just going to completely realm warp and just utilize their better macro just to completely decimate the inside base here. No structure will survive the assault that BYG are bringing right now. There it is for the trifecta of super minions. In we go now, looking for that final pick. Renekton gone, a 2-man stun. There's the double flash again. I mean, these summoners have never been going forward, always on the retreat. As Shock, they're looking to end the game now. It's not quite 27 minutes, but it's all about KDA and kills for sure. As the second Nexus turret falls on down, 14 kills to 2. Almost a mirror match of game 1 in terms of the outcome. But a good game for Beyond Gaming themselves.
Yeah, 2 very one-sided games coming out so far today. I think Dewish team, you really have to raise questions about the draft here. I mean, we credit them for being creative, right? Seeing new picks, seeing stuff like the Annie and the Nidalee. But is this something a bottom tier team should play? I'm not sure it is. I mean, this is a comp that if you gave it to a top team against a middle team, I could see the top team losing, right? It's a comp that really, it says confidence and it says you're better than the enemy team, but Dewish team, they don't have the early game or the individual play to back that up.
Yeah, I think it's a really tough ask to not necessarily, you know, reinvent the wheel, but you're basically asking more of your players to perform at a different caliber, and perhaps you're changing your concept as to what you want your team to be. Are we early game? Are we late game? Are we engaged? Are we split push? Are we macro? What are we, right? So I think they've tried multiple different brushes if they were a painter, but they've yet to find their masterpiece.
Oh, okay. That was nice setup, Skimmy. I'll give that to you. It's interesting. Like, I wonder if this is a comp that you play in scrims and it does actually find some success, right? Because scrims naturally are more volatile. So if you play something, you know, very early game focused, perhaps that does lead you to some of those scrim wins. But